Hello and welcome to Dig Down Deep, a new podcast which I'll be starting from this week till whenever I can. So, today we are going to talk about parenting and how it is confused with caretaking in the Indian scenario. Since this is the first time you're listening to me, I'd like to address a few things. Firstly, after having a detailed audience interaction, I narrowed down to few topics that you guys prefer. These topics were arts, entertainment, culture, and society. So I'm going to swim around these topics for now. Secondly, I personally am not a big fan of single person podcast, but since this divine intervention of starting a podcast came to me during the time of COVID-19, so which is the reason I have to start off with no guest or co-host as of now. But I promise you, if this thing kicks off well, then I'll bring in new and interesting people as soon as the pandemic is over, or at least under control. That's it. I hope you find today's episode thought provoking. My name is Piyush Rana. I'm an aspiring filmmaker, a writer, and currently a podcaster. And you are listening to Dig Down Deep, a podcast where I'll talk about life, arts, entertainment, creativity, and everything that might provoke a thought in your head, and hopefully lead you towards a happy and fulfilling life. Alright, let's get this thing started. So, I want to start off with a statement which is more of a personal opinion that the 90s generation, the later millennials in particular, who are almost 25 years of age and will probably marry in about 5 to 10 years. Now, what I think is that this group of people, when they have kids, they are going to be outstanding parents. This might sound like an obvious thing to say because a new generation will always be a better and updated version of the older generation. Also, what I just said can turn out to be absolutely false, but I have a few facts to support my opinion. The generation I'm talking about is culturally diverse, so the future might be more accepting towards all faiths and races. This is a generation which knows and understands both the pre-internet and the post-internet times, which gives you a huge advantage when it comes to having a perspective on life. They are not afraid to put their thoughts out. They are woke and also virtuous most of the times. And most of them tend to have adapted to a lifestyle which is a perfect blend of money as well as happiness. As you can see, with the rise of all these new innovative professions surfacing up every now and then. Another reason what I said might be true is because of the fact that this generation would probably not have kids just for the reason of someone to hold on to when they get old or to keep the family running. We research and analyze a new phone for weeks before buying it, and this is a baby I'm talking about. So definitely a lot of thought and reason will be used by these people before starting a family. And it's always a good idea to use reason to reach a decision. So yeah, all you upcoming parents, I hope what I said ages well and have not jinxed it. Hopefully you guys will lead humanity to a better place. Now, I'm not talking about parenting without a reason. And one of the reasons is that I have been living with my family like all of us are doing, or most of us are doing at this time of COVID-19. And I can sense this pit in between me and my parents, which seems like none of us are able to fill up to a satisfactory level. And I'm sure many of you might relate to this. And this made me think, why is it like this? And why is it not being addressed? Are we not trying hard enough? Or have we given up and think it's impossible to find a mutual ground? I think the problem lies in our understanding and perception of these two terms, which are parenting and caretaking. Indian parents are excellent caretakers. They'll feed you till you reach a certain age in which you can figure out stuff for yourself. They'll feed you for even a longer period as well at times. They are going to take care of you, give you shelter, make sure you do all kind of stuff to take care of your body. suggest you to do yoga every day and whatnot. And the most beautiful part is that they do this with utmost dedication. They'll often go out of their way to provide you with something, a new phone, maybe, or a new laptop. We all have such examples. So, when it comes to caretaking, Indian parents are nailing it. But when it comes to parenting, which is feeding the mind and creating a healthy individual mentally, I think they cover it with a very shallow viewpoint. They often confuse caretaking with parenting and don't tend to consider the psychological, biological, and sociological aspects that their child is associated with. The reason behind this probably might be their own upbringing. When they were growing up, which was a post independence India, things were different. Survival and supporting the family must have been the priority of your grandparents, and they did not have time to answer and acknowledge your parents' questions. No one talked to them and answered their queries on metaphysics, existence, life, sex, and whatnot. No one told them about emotions and feelings and how to express them in a healthy way. And unfortunately, they did not have access to internet to know about all this stuff. So that part just does not exist in their upbringing. And that is what they reciprocate. Because obviously, this is the first time they became parents. And that is probably why we don't have a culture of asking questions at our homes. Constructive arguments, which is probably the healthiest way to grow mutually as humans, is considered a taboo in our households. When we ask our parents the whys and the hows, they don't have answers most of the times. And if they do, they probably want you to figure it out yourself, like they did. Because that is what happened to them, right? They just think it's normal because the concept of actually talking about stuff is foreign to them. This creates an environment that does not support the process of engagement and discussing ideas and talking about life, because you realize that there are gonna be two outcomes. Either you won't get a satisfactory answer, or you won't get an answer at all and you will be shut down. The obvious line of argument to this is someone saying, "So what? I'm still their child and they are still my parents. So what if we are both wired in different ways? I can always learn about all this stuff from anywhere else." Well, that is absolutely fair in my opinion. That's a good argument. Hold on to it. But before you go to sleep, ask yourself a question, that if you die tonight, will your parents be able to say that they knew you? And will you be able to say the same? And if you think the answer is a no, well, I think it's a little sad and ironic that you couldn't even maintain a proper relationship with the people who brought you into this life, and yet you wanted to change the world all your life. There are two ways things can go. Either you fully or partially agree with what I have said, or you have never faced anything like this all your life, and this sounds foreign to you. Now, whatever the case is, I think this quote by Frederick Douglass is what we should keep in mind when we think about parenting. Frederick says, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." It's a beautiful thought, and it makes you think and realize that when you raise a child, you're actually raising a part of humanity, a part of life, which will be around after you're gone, and which will represent you, your ideas, your thoughts, your vision. The life of human on this planet is limited. His legacy is not. So, you who are listening to this podcast, whatever your age is, connect with your kids if you have them. Connect with your parents if you don't have kids. For life is too short to not know the people who gave birth to you. Tell them about your ideas, your struggles, your beliefs, your fears, your anxieties, like you tell them to your friends or your partner. Build a meaningful relationship with them, and don't just stick around because you're supposed to do so. On that note, I would like to end this podcast. Thank you everyone for listening to me. and I'm very open to suggestions and your ideas and thoughts on the podcast. You can send in your suggestions on Instagram. My handle is PiyushRana09. And if you would like to read a transcript of this podcast and check out some additional thought-provoking content, you can check it out on my blog or website. Address is runningafternirvana.blogspot.com. Thank you, and looking forward to see you in the next episode.